Hot stove conversations about baseball, history, football, and current events that may leave you saying there's more to consider. Now, here's your host, Jack Moore.
Welcome to another edition of More to Consider. You all know from watching my shows, I'm a big sports guy. I love pro football. I was a big Redskin fan growing up, but I also love baseball, and I'm heavily involved in it. I coach, do these several things in baseball. And I've gotten into, in the last 5 years, I've started to go to the American Baseball Coaching Association conventions each year. And about 3 years ago, I'm kind of walking the halls there. I'm in the vendor section where you get to see all the new contraptions that people are using and teaching with. And I run into this gentleman I have on today, and I'm very honored to have him on. I think the world of him, and I think the world of the work he's done. So I'm like, oh, there's Clint Hurdle. So I kind of step over and I said, Clint, I remember you in Norfolk. And he said, as a player or as a manager? I said, both. So he came up through the Mets organization, went back into coaching with the Mets organization before Norfolk became Baltimore. They were for many years the AAA affiliate of the New York Mets for years and years. So I saw Clint. We started to talk. We ended up the next day over by my friend Tom House. We talked a little bit more, exchanged information, and I saw him again this year. And I said, I'd love to have you on the show, talk baseball, talk his life. I know he's got a book out now. I'm sure he wants to talk about that. Clint, I'm so happy to have you on. Honored to have you on. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing very well. We're kind of spoiled down here in Florida. It's 73 degrees, blue skies. We live out here on the intercoastal, so we're doing well. We're blessed.
Well, God bless you, brother. I'm an old radio guy, so like before we went on the air, I'm coaching here in Virginia, and we played yesterday a doubleheader, and it was 38. And I think the wind chill was 30. So, it's not something you quite as much get in Florida, but I've been to spring training before when it was pretty chilly too, but not that cold. So you're a Major League Baseball player. You're a Major League manager. You're a gentleman that has managed in the World Series, and you've done player development for years and years. So the game has shaped you, but I looked into your bio. You got to be a pretty bright guy. I understand you were accepted at Harvard. You considered going to University of Miami to even play football. You were a multi-sport star, born in Michigan, raised in Florida. At what age, this is always one of those questions I always want to ask of friends that played at the highest level. At what age as a kid, what influenced you to play baseball, and how far did you think you wanted to go in the game?
Well, my life trajectory changed at the age of 5.
Okay.
My dad took me out in the backyard and said, hey, son, he said, you want to play catch? Looked down at me and said, you want to play catch? Well, I'm 5. I said, Dad, what are we going to catch? And he said, come back in the garage. I got a couple gloves and I got a couple baseballs. I'm going to give you a glove. I got my glove, got a couple balls. We're going to go back out here in the backyard and we're going to play catch. He said, it's just you and me throwing the ball back to each other. And then if we get good at it, we'll play a game and we'll count points. Mm-hmm. That was at the age of 5. Well, if I just speed up a little bit, I can tell you this, a little over a month ago on January 10th, 2026, my dad and I played catch again. He's 92. I'm 68. Wow. We've been playing catch for 63 years. Now, it looks a lot different now than it used to. It's more chase than it is catch now because we're not quite as accurate throwing the ball. But really, at the age of 5, my dad introduced me to baseball. He said, I love the sport. I'm just hoping that I can dip you in it a little bit and see if you have a big as heart for it as I do. And it turned out that I have. I do, and it's been something that I've just enjoyed from that first time, that first day, putting the glove on my hand and throwing a ball to still actively being engaged in the game at the major league level and in player development with the Colorado Rockies. Now I'm still watching kids play ball. Mm-hmm. I'm still watching kids play catch, and I'm still trying to provide some experience, some strength, and some hope for those young ones on their way up. I love it.
Well, we're glad you're in the game still doing that. That's great. My dad lived to 92, and that's amazing that you're still out there playing catch. I think that's a beautiful story. And our parents do greatly influence us. So I understand that part about you playing football, too. Did you ever go through a period where you were thinking maybe football was a greater part of your future? Was it a struggle with that with baseball?
No, there was never a struggle for me. My dad loved football. My dad was a 3-sport athlete all the way through college.
Right.
And I played all sports. year round. You know, you went from football into basketball, and then when you to baseball. I started getting jammed up after my junior year. There just wasn't enough time. I was a very good quarterback.
Right.
I had multiple athletic scholarship offers as a quarterback. I ended up signing a letter of intent to go to the University of Miami because they were one of the few universities that would allow me to play football and baseball. I was going to play baseball in college if I had to go that route.
Right.
Football was a byproduct of it. There's still people in Merritt Island that will tell you, I was just there. I hosted a golf tournament 2 weekends ago for our high school baseball team for the 14th year, but there's still guys there my dad's age will look me in the eye and said, you messed up. You should have played football. This baseball thing was okay, but you should have played football. Yeah. I played football really because my dad liked it. I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. Friday night was great. I was a quarterback, so practices weren't that hard. We had a pro set offense. We audibled at the line. It was a beautiful setup. But practice? Now, whereas baseball, you know, 6 of us kids would get on our bikes and go up to the local park and play all day. We didn't need coaches. We didn't need drills. Baseball was just something that came easier for me as far as just the want to.
Right.
And the desire to always try and learn something new. We changed positions all the time. We all tried pitching. We all tried catching. We tried to switch hit. We tried figuring a lot of things out on our own. Baseball always seemed just like a tremendous jigsaw puzzle for me. It still does at times. So there's never that point where I was kind of caught in between on which one I wanted to do. There was no doubt in my mind early on that probably about the age of 13 or 14 that I knew I wanted to play in the big leagues. I wanted to win a World Series. Now, how I was going to get there was another question, but I knew in my heart that was something that I was going to try and make happen.
So I'm an attorney, and years ago I had a buddy of mine approach me. You know a lot of people in baseball, and I'd work with here in the Virginia Beach area. It's crazy. I was in an indoor facility. I had David Wright at 11, Mark Reynolds, Michael Kadire, Jason Du Bois, Josh Roop's on the wall up there. I had him at 11. He pitched with the Rangers, 3 teams actually. But you know, I was in this hotbed of talent that was starting to come up in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia, and this guy asked me, he's like, hey, you want to get involved in the agent game? And help me out, because he was a basketball guy wanting to be an agent. It's like the worst business on earth, but I learned a lot. And we're going through a period there where I was working with guys in the early 2000s where I understood it because I had a lot of scout buddies too. They're under the pressure of somebody in the front office is saying, when you run out there and talk to these guys, you better nail them down on what they're willing to sign for. And then the game becomes the game. So you're drafted in 1975. Looking it up, you were 9th overall pick. I know the world was different, but I want to ask you, because the money wasn't what it was for signing bonuses in 1975. The Brian Taylor thing in 91 is what really kind of blew it up. You know, Van Poppel, that whole time frame in 90, actually, Van Poppel. But at the time that you're in high school, like, when are you first aware, like, man, there's scouts in the stands. Somebody's watching me. I see a stopwatch. Or when did that really become a thing for you when you saw it?
My sophomore year, and when I played sophomore year was 10th grade. There was no 9th grade yet in high school. My sophomore year, we had a all-state fullback named Waldo Williams, who had already signed a letter of intent to go to Florida State. But he was also a baseball player. We played against each other in Little League when I was 10 and he was 12. Waldo was a hot prospect as far as major league scouts showing up to watch us play. I happened to be on the team. I happened to win a starting position. Scouts were there watching Waldo play. And it was probably towards the end of the season where all of us would grow accustomed to the game ending. Our coach would talk to us. We'd all walk out, and all the scouts would be outside waiting for Waldo. And then we'd all walk by him. No scouts talk to anybody else. And we'd all get with our parents or whatever and go home.
Right.
Well, this one particular game is I'm walking out. And I see my dad. My dad's surrounded by 4 or 5 scouts. I didn't know there were scouts, but I kind of figured it out. Clipboard, stopwatch. I'm pretty sharp like that. You know, you mentioned the Harvard thing, so.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, I see these scouts with my dad, and I'm thinking, I wonder what's going on there. So I walk over, and each one of them took their time to say, you know, we've been watching Waldo play all year, and there's a good chance he'll get drafted. But we sure are glad we've come here because we've got to see a 10th grader play that we think's got a really good chance to be drafted in a couple of years, and we can't wait to watch you play and develop. That day, I walked away thinking that 13-year-old kid that hoped to get to the big league someday, there may be this may be real in some avenues. At least other people thought I had talent to continue to come back and watch me play.
Right. Yeah, and that brings up a point too. I've coached on teams where we'll have a guy that's draftable, and then you're going to have these kids that have this resentment. They're like, well, why are they looking at him? He's not so great. Why aren't they looking at me? And one year I brought a kid out who got drafted because he played with a kid that threw in the mid-90s. And he was telling me, and he's a scout now, and he was telling my guys, he said, if one of your teammates is getting interest, you should be happy because when the scouts come out, show them something. And he said, I was a total unknown. I'm in the outfield with my friends pitching, and guys were like, hey, who's that guy? And that got him drafted. So I brought him in for that purpose because I knew him when he was 12 years old, and I watched him develop. But he said it's always a blessing if they're watching the other guy because hey, you got an opportunity to show something. They're going to watch it. And from scouting, sometimes you go to see the one guy and you find another guy. That happens all the time. So you shouldn't resent your teammate getting interest. You ought to understand it's your chance to shine. So you're 16-ish, probably 15, 16 at that time. Now you've kind of had, because I think that's what a lot of what kids go through. They see people on TV and they think they come from another planet. They're like, well, where do professional baseball players come from? And they don't see themselves as that guy until they have an event where, oh, well, maybe I am one of those guys. You had that dream. So now, did you begin to feel a greater pressure to perform, or did it just kind of seem to come naturally at that point?
Well, I don't know if it came natural. I think it became an appreciation of the hard work I'd already put in.
Right.
And I just I was grateful for it. I was thankful for it. I didn't feel like I got to go do X, Y, or Z now. I felt that, my dad put in a lot of hard work. My sisters made sacrifices. My mom. This may be something that plays out. It was kind of funny as this is all playing out in my mind. My dad would stay on me about playing football because he thought I was really good at it. My mom would stay on me about my school grades because she saw a kid that loved to learn, loved to read, loved to study. Through the whole process, I think what the best part of high school for me was at the end. When I graduated, I was drafted by the Royals, the first pick. I was the first pick, and the ninth pick of the first round. Mm-hmm. I also had an athletic scholarship at the University of Miami. I also had an academic scholarship offered to me from Harvard University. Right. Through all those efforts, though, building up, I created an opportunity where I had options.
Sure.
And I could talk to different people. When the pro scouts came and said, hey, here's our deal, my dad would go, well, we're humbled. That's really a nice offer. He's still thinking about football a little bit. And the crazy thing about my son, he actually thinks he wants to go to Harvard. So I don't know how this baseball thing's going to play out. And I know for that money, probably not going to get him to go. My dad ended up being an agent one time.
Yep.
But he did use those other two opportunities as leverage to sign the contract that we ended up signing with the Royals. Now, obviously, we didn't break anybody's bank, but we've got cash money and we got stock options from Marion Laboratories. Ewing Kauffman, the owner of the Royals, owned Marion Laboratories. The stock options turned out to be way more money than the signing bonus was. The signing bonus was like $75,000 and with all the incentives and everything tied to it. And to me, though, that was $1 million to my dad, my family. It was all relative at the time. But by having good grades, by having, the ability to play another sport, it worked out to our best benefit. And I've always been thankful and grateful for my mother for looking at me, from that side, for my dad continuing to encourage me to play another sport. Right. And to this day, parents will ask me, and I said, hey, have your son play other sports.
Sure.
It just trains the brain different. It trains the body different. They won't get worn out because like you, I see kids all the time that get worn out early in baseball just because of the amount of games or the amount of showcases or the amount of experiences that they're having that are high pressure, high profile. You and I talked a little bit earlier before coming on. There were so many days where me and my buddies just went out and played. There was no scoreboard. There was no umpire. There was no coach. Yeah, those were some of our best days.
When I was doing the player rep stuff, I met so many great scouts. And I remember this one gentleman, he was in his mid-60s, and he told me, I got Ted Williams stuff up here behind me. I just think Ted Williams is one of the most fascinating. He's John Wayne. He was who John Wayne played in all the movies. Marine Corps pilot, 2 wars, whole 9 yards. But this guy was telling me stories. He's about 65 or so, 25 years ago. I'm sure he's long since gone, but I love the guy. And he would tell me different stories about being in the big leagues in the mid 50s and seeing people like Ted Williams play, Mickey Mantle. And one day he said, "You know what's wrong today, Jack?" And so he goes, "Let me ask you something. Did you play with other kids in the neighborhood growing up?" I said, "Yes, sir. Sure did." Sandlot. And I go, "Yes, sir." He goes, "How many parents around?" I said, "None." "Mom called you to dinner when it got dark?" "Yep, yep." And he said, "How many coaches?" I said, "None." "Umpire?" "Nope." He goes, "What did you learn from it?" He said, "Who made the rules?" And I said, "Either the kid that brought the ball or the one that could kick everybody else's ass, but somebody, made the rules." And he said, "Did you learn to play together?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "So your first experience in organized baseball, what did you think of the coach?" And I said, "I pretty much thought he was the guy that wrote the lineup. Like what we did was kind of learn how to play, and we learned how to have expectations of each other. So, and we watched TV. Like we had to watch only the game of the week. And God, when I think about Vin Scully and Joe Garagiola and Tony Kubek and the minds that I listened to as a kid, I mean, I was watching that TV every Saturday to learn all I could about Major League Baseball, and that influenced us growing up. Kurt Gowdy was another one I loved. And he made the point, he goes, "This is what's missing today. The kids only throw or play today if they're with their instructor in an environment where everything, they're the stage, etc. It's not a team aspect at all." And that really struck me. And I thought it was, as you were saying, I read a recent study that multi-sport athletes are 39% less likely to be injured before they end high school. And I know a lot of college programs. I remember seeing this about Urban Meyer years ago. He wants multi-sport guys for football because they tend to be better athletes. They have different motor skills, different training. So I'm going on, but kids won't go to a lot. And as a lawyer, I can tell you, it's just over litigation. If some kid gets hurt on somebody's grounds, there's going to be a lawsuit. So that neighborhood park is kind of a thing of the past. But what the kids are missing is they're not learning how to play baseball. And I've coached kids at pretty high levels in summer leagues, and I know I've become old man, get off my lawn, but they really don't know anything about the game. The middle infielders, I ask them, "Are you looking in for pitch and location?" "What do you mean?" I'm like, "You don't know the catcher signs?" "No, sir. Never thought about it." You're not looking for location. You're not looking about where the ball may be steered. They don't think of any of that. So I'm sure you're getting that even at the pro level. You're getting kids in that you're really having to teach for the first time in the minors, even how to play baseball. Fair?
It's fair. There also are the other cases where there's kids that show up that are ball players.
Yeah.
A lot
Oh,
of kids
sure.
go to some really good college programs. There's some
Yep.
wonderful JUCO programs. There's small college programs that are developing real good baseball players. But there's also a lot that aren't.
Right.
And there's also a lot of kids parents are investing a lot of time, money, effort in showcases.
Right.
And they're training in small spaces. And they're so cognizant of numbers that they've lost the touch and feel to play.
Yes.
Um, I work at a number. For the 2 years I retired, I was a part-time independent contractor for some showcase baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them actually wanted me to come back in and basically just work the crowd and the families because they didn't want the parents to feel they're holding them upside down, the kids upside, shaking money out of them.
Right.
I had known the people working. I said, okay, I'll try and give the parents a better understanding of what you're trying to accomplish. But as I watched the whole process play out, even if you're trying to put out a baseball learning type development system, a lot of the kids aren't hearing your message. They're still focused on, well, I got to find my number. I got to hit my spin. I got to look at my velocity. And you watch things, and as soon as a pitcher releases the ball, his head snapped back to see what his drive line numbers were. Some of that, yeah, it's a little frustrating. It's a little maddening. Unfortunately, we've all been, not all of us, but a lot of the world's been involved in that systematic approach of growing them up.
Yeah.
They've become accustomed to their own generation and what's important. And the flashy object's important. The gimmick's important. The guru's important. There's so many more hands on a player as he starts to play that you'd think, well, that could help his development. It's not so much about development. It's getting a result. It's hitting a number. So they're losing I still talk to our kids today. The art of hitting, the art of pitching.
Yes, it's
They have a touch and feel for it. The grip, your stance, to not be robotic, to not be sterile, to not be number focused. I mean, you hit a baseball, you're going to get a lot of feedback on the way the ball spins off your bat,
Exactly.
the direction. One of the simplest drills I use with our guys after the game, I said, we just go back and we watch the view of our guy hitting from center field. The pitch is outside and down, right? A right-handed hitter, the ball's down the way. He hooks the ball to shortstop. There's a lot of information to be gathered right there.
Yes.
You know, 2 bats later, the ball's down the way, he hits a bullet into right field. There's a lot of information to be gathered right there. I really try my best to put them in situations where I'll ask a good question and then they get the floor to run and give me answers. We're not giving kids enough chance, I don't think, as an industry, lower levels, a lot of people, just asking them a question, excuse me, and listen to them for some feedback because they become robotic. They just want to be told what to do, how to do it, and how long to do it for.
Yes.
So I do agree with you. But I'm not going to be one of those guys that stands around just whining and moaning about it. I'm still going to stay involved because there's parts of the game I love still. It's not the same game at the major league level that I fell in love with. It's not.
Right.
But it's okay.
Right.
There's still parts of it that I love. So I either need to figure out, hold on to the ones I love, coach in a space that I can coach, make a difference in a space that I can make a difference in, and let the rest of it go. And I've been fortunate to be put in a situation now, post-managing years in Colorado, where I'm doing most of my work in player development.
Right.
I'm growing up young coaches and managers, and I'm watching young players and pitchers. And I'm just trying to be a guide on the side.
All right. This is the elephant in the room. You know, I was going to ask about this at some time. I've watched a lot of clips on this because I wonder, I've watched several clips where you've retold the story. And something I remember about you was the Sports Illustrated cover. And what impact that has on a young man. You were 20 when you were on the cover, correct? You were 20 at that time?
Yes. I believe so, yes.
And you had no idea it was coming. If I'm not mistaken, you're in a 7-Eleven the first time you see the cover.
Correct.
So what impact did that have? You can tell the story. Tell the story for the audience.
Well, I was reached out to by our director of public relations, Dean Vogelaar, and said, hey, there's people from Sports Illustrated. They do a tour of spring training every year. They take photos and have a little conversation with a couple players. They're going to interview you and Willie Wilson next week, such and such a day. After practice, you guys will stay around. So we stayed around. They shot photos. We got answered some questions. And then I guess a few days later, I got a call from one of the guys for some more questions, which should have at least made me aware that maybe I'm one of the, I don't know,
Finalist.
maybe I'm going to be a guy that's going to be a major part of the article.
Right.
I spent a long time with a guy named Larry Keith on the phone. Just he's asking me questions. But Sports Illustrated never told anybody who was going to be on the cover. That was one of the big, one of the big cool things about it. You didn't know until that thing hit your doorstep. It was in your mailbox or it showed up at 7-Eleven. Nobody knew. Well, normally I would go to the 7-Eleven every morning on my way to the park, and I would pick up a honey bun and a gallon of milk. And same guy every morning, young guy my age, counter, money. Hi, how you doing? That was it. I'd go. Well, this day, I go up to the counter. I put my honey bun down, my milk. I look at him. He said, hey. And then he looks down off to the side. And he looks back at me, and he looks back down again. So I look where he's looking, and I see my face on the cover of the Sports Illustrated magazine. Now, this is the day that 7-Elevens, they didn't have a magazine counter. There were 3 magazines. They were all on the counter next to the cash register. Newsweek, Time, and Sports Illustrated. So, Jack, when I looked down and saw my face on the cover, the blood drained from my head. I looked at the kid. He looked at me. We looked at each other. I walked out of the store. No honey bun, no milk. I drove to the park. I knew something had happened. I wasn't sure what. And then there was the ribbing from the players. There was magazines placed strategically in the clubhouse. Some guys thought it was cool. Some guys thought it was funny. And there were some older guys that just really didn't like it at all. Guys that played 10 years in the big leagues, never been on the cover of anything. And, it wasn't my fault. However, It was what it was. So I dealt with that, whether I was worthy. So did I need to go prove more?
Yeah.
There was something completely out of my control that I probably helped manifest into something more than it should have been. And, there's many times I went out of my way to I wanted everybody to like me. I wanted to have the best game ever, every game. Never wanted to fail. Never wanted to show that I was uncomfortable or, I wasn't confident. So it caused me to work through a lot of emotions I had never even experienced before in a baseball uniform. And it was hard. A lot of learning lessons involved. It made me tougher. It shaped me in some ways for later on in life. But it was a challenging situation to go through at the age of 20, 21.
Yeah, I think that what you're touching on, especially at your age at the time, and I just kind of looked it up again, it was a March 20. So you were in spring training when this happened, correct? Yeah.
Correct.
So, when you look back on it now, the ages we've reached and think 20's young. You're a 20-year-old guy, you're young, and you didn't ask for any of this. That's the thing that I think, you might have a 32-year-old veteran in there like, hey, how'd this kid get on the cover of Sports Illustrated? I never did. And now, he wants to act an ass or something to some degree. It's just not fair to you. Like now, if they found that you courted Sports Illustrated and you're pulling on some guy's jacket after, hey, take a picture of me, that's one thing. But in fairness to you, the club comes to you and said, hey, you and Willie might be getting some pictures taken. Okay. You don't know what's going to happen. And then to find it out the 7-Eleven, I feel for you, brother, because I just don't think that's now, was there any talk really to Sports Illustrated about maybe you don't want to do this to some kid coming up in the future? Did this become
Never.
a thing?
I think they stopped it eventually. I think there were some reasons that I don't believe any one of us ever got nominated for the Hall of Fame. It happened for about 5 or 6 years, and
Right.
they actually came up with the term the Sports Illustrated jinx.
Sure.
And they encapsulated that for that rookie of the year or rookie guy they would put on the cover every spring training. But it stopped after about 6 years. Its shelf life ran out. They stopped doing it. It was a tremendous life lesson for me later on, especially when I became a coach, a young minor league manager. When I would get a number 1 draft pick or a big league manager or a big league hitting coach, expectations. Right. A lot of times expectations have the opportunity to turn into future resentments if you don't handle them properly. Right. So I learned a lot through it. I also think our game got smarter as they went on because now we actually run young players through a rookie training class, a media workshop. There's all different kind of learning experience they have for them before they get really, usually they start handpicking the kids out of AA on who they think may be public figures or maybe get a lot of exposure from the media. And they start trying to help educate them how to present themselves, how to be aware of what's going on, not get caught up into it, and understand that a lot of it's somebody else's thoughts and opinions. They don't have to be yours. However, you can play it the right way or you can play it the wrong way and manifest a lot of things and actually get a lot more collateral damage than you need to have by having poor actions on your part.
It's Monday morning quarterbacking, and it's close to 50 years ago. But you'd almost think a little bit of the people in the organization. There might have been somebody in the room that would have thought when Sports Illustrated approached them, I don't know if we really want our guys in that environment getting potentially splashed on the cover. But I'm sure there wasn't enough foresight with that. They're probably thinking
they thought it was cool, Jack. It was cool for the organization. We're a Midwestern market, small market team, and we all continue to learn as we get older. If we can maintain a white belt mentality, something I talk about in my book, being a lifelong learner, you think about each generation. There's been lessons learned by each generation.
Sure.
They didn't understand at the time, and they figured it out as they went along. That's why they have the rookie training classes now. That's why we take these kids. We have our own specific rookie training classes in spring training for guys that come to the big leagues for the first time at camp, a major league camp. We've got about 15 of them this year. They've already gone through 3 or 4 different workshops just to make them aware. This is what is expected. This is how it'll be handled. This you'll be asked to do. You may want to stay away from social media. Don't get any fist fights. Be bright, be polite, and get out of there. So I think we all continue to learn as we go on.
Yeah, I had a couple of kids. It's funny. They had 180 degrees apart, separate experiences. I had one kid, he's 22, gets called up. And I'm not going to name teams or players or anything, but he gets called up. And I said, how you doing? He goes, I'm a little bit ticked. I'm like, why is that? He goes, the team's 25 games out of first place, and they think it's hilarious that they dressed me up as a Hooters girl at the airport. So I got to stay in the airport dressed in a Hooters outfit. So I got another kid playing for another very well-known manager. And I said, hey, what kind of hazing did you get? He said, Jack, I went to my locker there where my jersey's hanging, and the most prominent, respected guy on the team comes up and he goes, hey, I'm this guy. Anything you need, I'm there for you. And I was like, really? And he goes, yeah, the manager's view was treat the rookies like men. Don't try to make fools of them. They'll play better if they feel like they're a part of it. I'm like, wow. So it's two entirely different experiences. But that first kid was real warrior. He said really what bothered, he goes, look, if they want to haze me a little bit, fine. But they're laughing and joking about the particular situation they put me in. And we're 25 games out of first place. Like, they don't seem to take anything seriously except laughing at me. And the other guy, his experience was top guy comes up and says, I'm there for you. Anything you need, call out to me. And I thought, which is a better approach? And you'll probably get guys in baseball that will say, the other's good too. You gotta make that guy realize he's not the biggest, brightest star. But the guy that got from the best player, I'm here for you, said, I immediately felt comfortable in my environment. And I felt like if I performed well, and he did. He said that the atmosphere on that team was fantastic. So he had a different.
I've seen it both ways, and I've actually seen some of the better situations are the hybrid situations where there was hazing.
Right.
Then after the hazing was a test to see how you would react.
Right.
And then after that, the veterans came up, put their arms around, and said, "Hey, you guys, that'll never happen again." It was kind of like your walk of shame, but to see how you reacted to it. Now you're here. You're one of us. Now we'll move forward. Next year, we used to have another thing where we used to have to go paint a certain. As a rookie, you had to go paint a certain part of the horse in downtown Chicago, a certain color, your team color, before you played the Cubs. I mean, you had to go at midnight, sneak out at night with a paint can, and paint a certain part of the horse, your team colors, and then report back. And when the bus would drive back by it in the morning, they better see that royal blue color or that Cincinnati red color, whatever it was, on that certain part of the horse. Who knows what's right or what's wrong? I do understand the thought, but there was a time, I think it's generational, and there's really not a whole lot of hazing going on anymore. It's done in different ways now where it's really not hazing. It's a rite of passage, and it's done in softer, more subtle ways. I do think your culture is what you tolerate, and your culture is usually what your players are doing when you're not watching or you're not around. That's a true test of your culture.
So now, when you finish your major league career, you go immediately into like coaching at the A-ball level. You kind of do the steps, AA, AAA. You end up in Norfolk for the time you were there. When you got to the big leagues with your first jobs in the big leagues, was there a pretty good percentage of kids you'd already had some experiences with, or maybe guys you'd played against that kind of helped it? Or was it more difficult because you knew some people from your past before you got to the highest level?
Well, I started off in the Mets organization. I went from a player to a manager at the age of 30. Got 10 years in the big leagues, managed the St. Lucie Mets and the Florida State League for 2 years, went to AA Jackson, and then we moved to Williamsport, and then 2 years, closed down Tidewater, and then opened up Norfolk. So 6 years of managing in the Mets system, then was fired. And I went to the Rockies organization as a hitting coordinator. I was a hitting coordinator for 3 years. At that time, I then was chosen to be the big league hitting coach. Don Baylor had gone through 5 hitting coaches in 5 years. Chose me, and it was kind of funny. My first big league job, I was the hitting coach. Well, there was only one of me. Didn't have an assistant, didn't have an assistant to the assistant. I was the hitting coach, I was the outfield coach, and I coached first base. So can you understand how much time I had in between innings to work with the hitters? I had to go coach first base.
Right.
And then when our guys on defense, I'm watching every outfielder, making sure we're doing our job there.
Right.
I was very busy, but I had known some of our players from the 3 years in the minor leagues, but it was never overwhelming. There was almost like a tremendous sense of gratification that I went and did my time again. I spent 9 years back in the minor leagues after a 10-year playing career to earn my way back for my next major league opportunity, and then got it with Don Baylor. Stayed with him for 2 years, Leland for a year, Buddy Bell for a year or two. They fired Buddy at the end of May. I was named an interim manager at the end of May in 2002. Ended up managing in Colorado to the end of the Into 2009, was fired that season. Went to Texas for 1 year, 2010, hitting coach. Went back to Pittsburgh and managed 9 more years. I went through a lot of different scenarios, but the biggest blessing was the 2 times I managed in 2 spots for 17 years, and we never won a World Series. So from my perspective, our staff, our organization must have believed we were covering the brand, we were growing people up, fans were coming out, we were doing good things. We just weren't able to finish off in a very positive way to win a World Series. But to stay in 2 situations for 17 years and never winning a World Series in either one of them. Now, we got to the playoffs, and one of them we did get to a World Series, but that was an incredible accomplishment. But it just goes to show you that hard work, aligning yourself with good people, and really showing up in service to others, because that's all I ever did. I showed up in service to others. It was never about me. I had the ego kicked out of me, all starting with that Sports Illustrated cover back in 1968. And then being a can't miss prospect, vet miss, that didn't work out. So there were so many lessons along the way. Plus my off the field life, there was a lot of mistakes made, a lot of hard lessons learned there. Once I got to that big league opportunity again, man, it was just be thankful, be grateful, do the best you can, pour into people, try and learn something new every day.
Now, looking at your highlights here, you were manager of the year, and I know the job you did with the Pirates. I mean, you did a phenomenal job. You know, the Pirates are a team that win it in 60, they win 71, they win 79. You know, historically, a lot of fans. I got a lot of friends from Pittsburgh. And then as more and more the dollar signs became, not that it's not always been that way. The history of the game is pretty much the haves and have-nots, but the Pirates were really down for a number of years when you got there. You turn that thing around. And I got to believe that's probably a great city to be a manager in or around those people, because I know they're loyal fans. I got a lot of friends that are Pirate fans and they love the organization. So that must have been rewarding at some level just to be in that town, especially like you say at that point in your life, having a second opportunity, a major league manager.
Incredible fan base, historic fan base, iconic. Mm-hmm. And at the time when I joined the organization, they had 18 consecutive losing seasons.
Right.
You know, I thought I understood the angst of the city. I had managed in Colorado, which is somewhat of a middle market situation again. I got to step away, watch another guy manage, Ron Washington, in Texas for a year, be a part of a team that ended up in the World Series in 2010. Learned some lessons there. I was able to keep things off Ron's desk. That I probably did my best job of coaching ever after I've been a manager for 8 or 9 years, then to go back and be a coach again and understand how I could be a better service to the manager. Right. So when I got to Pittsburgh, that was a better understanding of what I needed, the freedom I needed to give my coaches, a different way to look and work with players, a city that was rabid for winning baseball. We lost 2 more years and put that losing streak up to 20, which was crazy. But then we flipped the script in 2013. We went to we had the blackout game, 163. We beat the Reds. We went into the playoffs to break a 21-year losing or playoff drought, 20 consecutive years of losing, snapped that. And we went to the playoffs for 3 consecutive years. And that park, PNC Park, on the North Shore, it was a competitive advantage for 3 years. That park was packed every night.
Right.
People were yelling and screaming. It was a very hostile environment, and man, was it a lot of fun.
Yeah, when you mentioned 2010, so Josh up on the wall opened up with the Rangers. His rookie season was 05. My Josh Roop that grew up with me down here. So I got a chance, like when I talk to the kids I'm dealing with now, there have been a few guys in my life that I saw something different. One of them was when I was coaching. We had a shortstop playing against us one day. I was coaching in JUCO, and I looked in our dugout, and I said, guys, get the shortstop's autograph. And they're like, what, coach? And I'm like, the shortstop, get his autograph. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you guys don't see that? And they're like, what? And I'm like, he's different. It was Reggie Sanders. What did Reggie play, like 19 years in the big leagues? And they're all looking at me like, what are you saying? And I'm like, that cat's different. But I said, I think his feet are out of sync with his hands. He's going to end up in the outfield. You know the rest of the story. So then when I was in college, I got to go to a game, and I saw Strawberry go 5 for 5 in Atlanta. He hit a golf ball home run. He hit a line drive to Claudell Washington right that looked like a one-hopper back to the mound, and that was into right. So I saw him really good. But I don't think I ever saw a player that as much looked like an 18-year-old in the backyard playing with 10-year-olds as Josh Hamilton. I just never saw anything like him. And it was a short window, and we know the whole history. But man, so I just looked up. I think that's the year he hit 359 with you guys. I mean, it was just some like crazy season.
He won the MVP that year. He was an American League MVP.
He was pretty good, wasn't he?
Well, the funny thing is, you talk about Strawberry. You talk about Reggie Sanders hit more 3-run home runs against the clubs I managed than anybody else I ever faced. Right. And he did it in a bunch of different uniforms. We're still good friends today.
He's a great one.
But Strawberry and I played together in Norfolk that last year in 1983 before he went up.
Yeah.
Josh Hamilton had the most incredible season I ever witnessed, from the point that the first 2 months were very pedestrian.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually got to a point where it was very contentious between us, because he would always ask me about his swing. And I said, it's not your swing, it's your leg lift. He was sold out to a leg lift.
Right.
I think it was 2009, 2008, he had a good first half, bad second half. Right. 2009, it was just reversed. He had 2 super halves, but he also had 2 super subpar halves. Right. Couldn't put the full season together. So 2010, when I got in, I know John Daniels handpicked me as a hitting coach, and Ron Washington wanted me because Ron and I had worked together in New York. He was my third base coach in the minor leagues. But they thought I could come and help the offense in a lot of ways. They just lost Rudy Jaramillo, who was a tremendous hitting coach. But I also think they bet on the fact that Josh and I had both worked through addictions. We both had some recovery experience together, but maybe that would help him. You know, he had a guy named Johnny Nairn, which was with him most of the day, and that Johnny's a great man.
Yep.
So the three of us kind of put together a game plan, but Josh would always talk about his leg lift. My timing, I'm late. I said, why don't you just get rid of the leg lift? Why don't you get rid of it? Well, I can't get rid of it. It's kind of like being in a bad relationship. You'd rather be in a bad relationship than no relationship. Well, it was 2 months into the season. He's hitting 260, 6 home runs, 20, 30 RBIs. And Wash calls me in his office. Says, how long are you going to let Josh rub? And I said, I just listened. He blew my ears back. And I said, can I go hands-on? He goes, it's time you went hands-on. He said, what have you been waiting for? Go get him. Fix him and get him out there. I'm like, okay, manager just laid down the law. I'm going to go do this. Josh happened to walk in that day. It was June 1st. We're in Chicago playing the White Sox. He goes, hey, man, I was up all night. I don't know. I'm watching my swing. I'm late. I'm not on time. What do you got? I said, seriously. I said, for 2 months, I've been telling you what I got. Can the leg kick. Just can it. Right. Well, I can't do it. I go, then stop asking me. I'll just flip balls. We'll feed you balls. We'll do all this. The leg kick's killing you. Well, you really think I can change in one day? I go, I don't know if you can or you can't, but I've seen enough to think if anybody can do it, you can. Mm-hmm. You have gifts that I've seen other people in, and you've worked hard to get better in some areas that people don't realize how hard he worked sometimes.
Yeah.
I said, the combination of your hard work, the combination of the skill set you got, let's give it a shot. We went and hit in the cage for an hour. No leg lift. We went on the field and hit for 45 minutes. I had to get 2 other guys to hit with him just so he wouldn't be taking swings the whole time. Mm-hmm. He probably gets in 200 swings before the game, at a minimum. First at bat, Burley, bases loaded, 1 out, he pops up to the shortstop. Second at bat, there's a runner at third, there's 1 out, he pops up. He's got like 2 at bats where he's left runners on base. He goes down to the end of the dugout, fires his helmet, and out loud screams at Johnny Nairn, you go tell that old man I'm not doing that no more. I'm wasting my time. Johnny Nairn gets real loud. He says, no, you know what? That old man spent all day with you. You go down and tell that old man you're not doing it. You gave it 2 at bats. You gave it a real good shot. You go tell him. So here he comes. I'm thinking, he's going to post me up and tell me he's done. He walks right by me, goes down the tunnel, does a little yelling, does a little grumbling, throws his helmet, comes back, doesn't say a word. Next 3 at bats, I think it was a homer or 2 in the double and drove in 5 runs. He had 3 hits that night. He ended up the month of June with 49 hits.
Wow.
In a month. You can look it up. And you look up his numbers from June, July, August, and September. They are Nintendo numbers. But that's the numbers. You put that season together. He was the AL MVP.
Yeah.
He did crazy stuff. My dad went to Texas and watched, I think we had a 10-game, 12-day homestand. He said he'd never seen anybody play baseball like that since he saw Mickey Mantle play. Yeah. Combination of speed and power, defense, all of it. Incredible.
All right, I got to run this one by you, too. Because this, again, is my old man stuff. Last night we had a really good opportunity in the game, the doubleheader we played, with a team that was kind of extremely rah-rah. When things were up, they're screaming and hollering, and we tried to kind of match it. And I said, guys, look, because I learned early on I was kind of emotional when I played. I learned how to rein it in and turn and that's one of my Tom-isms from being around house. I mean, he was out there years ago talking to kids. He goes, can you pitch scared? And they're all like, no. He goes, absolutely you can. Can you pitch angry? Like, no. He goes, absolutely you can. You can pitch with any emotion as long as it doesn't adversely affect the next pitch. But I told these guys, I said, watch them. They're up, they're down, they're up, they're down. To me, you have to play the game more on even. You got to try to find even. So I did a show the other day, and I've said this about 3 different times on shows, and the comments there's an interesting comment I got back. I was in a building once, and you mentioned someone like Mickey Mantle. My gosh, there's all the demons. There's a growing up with the dad with a lot of expectations. There's the alcoholism. There's everybody in his family that was male was dead before they were 40. So he's living with all that. I saw him on with Costas years later, and when he was at the Betty Ford Clinic, he had to write the letter to his dad. Mickey went through a lot, but he went out to the bus and ate with Elston Howard when he was the only black guy on the team when they were in Florida. And he's the guy that volunteered to go out and eat with his black teammate, which he probably in Oklahoma never saw a black person in his life until Elston Howard. Or, maybe at the All-Star game, Willie Mays and Hank Aaron, but he's that guy. He's that teammate. So I'm in a building, and there's a poster. And it's clearly Mantle coming between second and third with his head down. And the poster, the statement was, whenever I hit a home run, I dropped my head and tried to get around the bases quickly. I knew the pitcher felt bad, and I didn't want to show him up. So I'm out there talking to some young kids about that, and they're like, well, Coach, that's a great story. I'm like, it's more than that. It's Mickey Mantle. It's 536 home runs. It's Mickey Mantle. Look up the history. And he was in an era where you were sort of a chump or less than man to show up the opposition. You didn't do that. It was, So I mentioned that on the show the other day. And this guy wrote, it's all about money and entertainment. Like, grow up, wake up, dude, you're not getting it. I'm like, oh, I get it. I'm still out there actively coaching. But I think the kids are so fixated on the next TikTok hit where they get to post how they stood and watched a home run or showed up the pitcher. That's kind of what they're playing for. And it was just interesting to me that Mantle came from a period where it was considered out of bounds, hot dog, whatever. What do you think about that part of the game? Do you feel like it's crossed into an area? Because I'm watching big league games. It doesn't look a whole lot different to me. It seems like a lot of rah-rah cheering and a lot of showing up of the opposition. Where do you think that is today?
I think it's generational. And I think every generation has complained about the one that came before it in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Kids have more distractions now than we ever had.
Exactly.
I can't imagine what my life would have been like with a cell phone. I can't imagine what my life would have been like with social media. I'm not going to make excuses for them. I just try and understand the different challenges they have.
Right.
The reason why they do act, why they do sometimes. I've worked a lot of showcase events where it's more important the drip that they get. You know what I mean by drip? Now I'm using one of those cool terms.
Yeah.
Whether it's the chain, whether it's the glasses, what kind of cover-ups they got, the shoes, the specific bat, the batting gloves, all of it. There's a lot of there's just a lot of added distractions that come in the form of entertainment or you're special because you get this. There's a lot of entitlement that happens along the way, which we didn't have time for. It wasn't a part of what we did.
Right.
I try and understand where they're coming from. I try and find them, help them find a way back to like some balance. Because I spent times in my 2 years that I was retired with 14-year-old kids, with 12-year-old kids playing ball, and it blew my mind sometimes. But at the same time, over the course of the thing, they'd realize the old guy, okay, he's not as okay. He kind of knows what he's doing, kind of knows what he's talking about. He's not here to rag on us. He's just sharing some information with us.
Sure.
I took phones out of players' pockets when they went on the field. I found out that they're out there playing a game with their phone in their pocket.
Yeah.
And I actually had a time where a parent complained to me that it wasn't my job to police their kid and their phone. And I said, well, you know what? I understand that. And I'm sorry you feel that way, But I can tell you this, as the manager, I've been given an opportunity to manage this team. And Joey isn't going to play if he's got to go out there with his phone in his pocket. So as long as his phone's in his pocket, he's going to sit here with me and watch. You good with that? Father ran right to his son, took his phone and said, you need to get out and play. I think there's different ways to try and look at it. They're the jumping up and down. It's kind of their way of expressing themselves. There was a slogan a few years ago, let the kids play.
Yeah, yeah.
I do get some of it. But then again, I was back in a big league dugout this year. And like you said, there's some times where, the score is so lopsided one way and you still see some celebration. But it's just not the game I grew up with.
Yes.
But I can understand now they're still just trying to celebrate something good, even when maybe good's not happening for the team.
Right.
We have too many independent contractor issues, though, as far as the uniforms. We got different colored belts. We got different colored arm sleeves. There's just a lot going on.
Yeah.
But we have been the ones that have allowed it. The forces that be in MLB, there's different colors now that they can use with the team colors. There's all the different bling that they can take on the field with them because it's allowed. Yeah. There's a part of me that says either I need to find a way to get along with that or I just need to get out of the way of it and not be a part of it. I can't have it both ways.
No, you're right.
I try and share with our guys what baseball scouts are going to value. At the end of the day, you are playing for one team, but you're also playing for 29 other teams because there's no telling how this thing's going to go as a Colorado Rocky, as a Pittsburgh Pirate. And I will tell you this, from a scouting perspective, they don't care what color belt you wear, what color sleeve you got on, what kind of shoes or what kind of drip you're taking on the field. They're looking at your skill set. So don't forget, all the other stuff, I get it. If that's a part of you, I get it. But the skills are the ones that are going to get you to the big leagues and keep you in the big leagues. Because we went through a situation in Colorado one year where I called a team meeting just because I had a couple players were late for practice. And nobody would tell me why, and I finally got it out of. They were still putting in their different shoe orders.
Oh, wow.
Making up their own different kind of shoes. And, they decided that it was more important that they came up with their own specific brand of shoe than just to be out to practice with everybody else. And that's when I had a challenge with it. But I didn't yell and scream and rant like a crazy old man. I just said, guys, this isn't acceptable. I got 23 people that are here on time. I got 2 that aren't, and it's because you had to go get your shoe order in. That's just not being a good teammate. I try and push things back towards what's most important for the team. Here's what the team needs. One of the things that I'm sure that you've noticed, I share this wherever I go. There's a Buddhist term called mudita, and I talk about this in my book as well. It's the definition of mudita is showing expressive joy for the success of someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I tell teams, I said, I've had teams that did it. I had teams that didn't do it. I've been on teams that didn't do it. I've been on teams that did it. It's amazing. Every good team I've ever been on, guys pulled for one another. Guys rallied around one another. It took all of us to accomplish whatever it was we accomplished. The teams I played on that weren't good, we were silos. We didn't really root for each other. We compared stats. We argued about playing time. We argued about who was better. The manager's not hitting me in the right spot. Just a lot of wasted energy, wasted thought, wasted conversation. And I see still today, even in some youth programs, there's some really good things going on. Mm-hmm. But there's some that are still out of bounds. But it comes down to what the adults or the coaches are going to tolerate. Because I do believe if you tell kids, okay, that's enough of that, we're not going to do that, I think they'll get on board with it. Especially if, there comes a point in time when you've got to impose something on somebody that crosses a line. You want them to have fun. We all are in this game because it's fun, but not making fun of or fun at somebody else's expense.
Right. I will say I've seen a marked turn pre or post COVID. The kids that went through that ordeal, and I was coaching in the next following years, the kids I'm getting right now, I don't want to say they necessarily are skewing conservative or whatever, but they're really good kids. Now our team is really unique too. We got kids from Panama, Venezuela, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Cuba. We have one kid, and white kids and black kids from America. Like we are like a rainbow of kids. So there are different cultures, different backgrounds. Everybody gets along. It's a really neat combination of different cultures on the team. But the kids listen, and I remember years ago, like sometimes you get a perfect teaching moment. I was a guy coaching JUCO as a head coach 15 years ago. And I would tell our guys, I'm like, look, I'm not a big everybody rush to the plate guy. I'm just not that guy. Guy hits a home run, act like you do it every day, that whole speech. And then sometimes you get a teaching moment. We're playing a team one day. We're up 10-0, fifth inning, 3 outs, 10-run rule, game's over. A guy hits a home run, scrapes the right field wall. It just barely makes it over the wall. Their whole team comes flooding out to home plate as the guy rounds the bases to make the score 10-1, literally 10-1. So I'm standing in the dugout. I'm like, guys, how stupid does that look? And they were like, yeah, coach, you're kind of right. So I got this opportunity to go, they're real happy right now. They're jumping up and down on the plate. They're down 10-1. If that kid had hit a sac fly, they'd still be down 10-1. You know, because the ball made it over the other side of the fence, they're celebrating. And they're down 10-1. So the guys started to buy in, and then they took a pride in hitting a home run and acting like nothing had happened. Shake the hand of the on-deck hitter, go to the dugout, everybody shook your hand, but they started acting and when I was growing up, more was a big league approach of, yeah, we do it every day, it's not a big deal. And that became intimidating. And then they eventually took pride in not jumping up and down at the plate. They literally did. So, you know, I won them over on that. But when I listen to the kids now, when I tell them the old man stories about Mickey Mantle and dropping his head, they listen. They listen. And I'm like, guys, you really need to look up, though. And again, you understand. I know you understand. You played at that level. Mickey Mantle was a special talent. And I don't think these kids are like, well, guys are bigger, faster. I'm like, guys, nobody was really much faster than Mickey Mantle. He had the knee injury. He had all the stuff off the field. But the stopwatch is a stopwatch. The guy ran like nobody that ever played. Hit from both sides of the plate. A ball 500 feet, still a ball 500 feet. You know, there's differences in the game, but I think he's one of those guys you could take from any era and play him today, and he's still that guy.
Well, I agree. But what we have the challenge of is recency bias. People haven't seen it. They don't believe it happened. Mm-hmm. Or they can't understand the quality of what was put on the field when it was out there. You know, you hear these conversations all the time today that velocity, they didn't throw this hard, whether it's guns, whether it's measuring, whether they're looking. We all just need to, I share this in my book as well. It's not about old school versus new school. It's about being in school.
Right.
Be in school. And you know what? When adults model the behavior they hope to instill in others, that's when your team will take on the characteristics of the manager, the coaching staff. And I always share with my players all the time, I love it when you play with emotion. I don't love it when you play emotionally.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You nailed it. That's a great statement. Well, let me ask you something else that I, from afar, thought the world of you before I ever met you, because I was kind of that guy too. I mean, at the coaching level, at the college level, I had a guy that was a former big leaguer as a college coach that would really take on umpires, the opposition. He carried himself like a major leaguer. He was great. But I remember one time him going after an umpire in a really, really righteous way. And one of my teammates was like, what's that all about? I mean, like, dude, he's taking up for us. Like, I want to be with this guy because he knew how to take up for his team. So I got a college buddy with all the rules. You know, you get multiple suspensions for getting ejected. I had a buddy of mine said it really struck him. One of his batters got called out on a strike 3, Division I college game. And he gives it to the umpire a little bit, and he's coming off, and the coaches are like, hey, you can't talk to the umpire that way. And he goes, well, if you're not going to do anything, who's taking up for me? And then the two coaches looked at each other like, son of a gun, like he's got a point, but we're going to have an AD coming down on us if we get ejected. So instead of barking at the umpire, they let the kid do it. Now they're mad at the kid. But when the kid says, you're not taking up for me. So that's a strange thing I've had with friends and parents. I'm like, I can be too showboat, too red ass, whatever. But in my mind, I'm taking up for my players. When I saw you as the Pirates manager, I would see some of your on the field. And I was like, I would love to play for that guy. I always thought that. I'd love to, because I knew that you were out there defending your players. It's literally what you're doing. You're defending your team. You're defending your players. And I think at that level of battle, 6 months together on the road and doing things, you got to know that that guy is there for you. But when we had the talk the other year at the convention, you said a little bit about maybe different teams got a little bit different treatment depending on the star power of certain programs. Would that be fair to say?
Well, I think it goes back to entitlement. And I can remember when I was playing, there's certain pitchers that strike zone was much bigger than others.
Yeah.
At certain times as a hitter, when you were a rookie, your strike zone was a lot bigger than, my strike zone was different from George Brett's.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. But you understood it going in.
Yeah.
It wasn't a point of contention. There were umpires that I wouldn't say they rooted for other teams. It just depended on the players. The best umpires are the ones that you don't even know that are there.
Exactly.
Right? When you start to learn the umpire's name, there's a lot going on. And you're paying too much attention to him, and he's getting in the way too often. It's kind of the same when the game gets in a situation where it's time to go stand up for a player. There's a point that can be made. There's a conversation that can be had, and it can be diffused then. And there's sometimes when I went out there, Jack, and it was just, they needed to understand that this isn't right. And I'm not just walking away on this one. This one is not going to be diffused. I'm not walking away. I want my team to know I've had enough of what's going on out here. The only way I can do that is to spill it right here. I'm going to get out. You go ahead, throw me out, do whatever you want to do. And then I'll go upstairs and we'll let my bench coach will run the game and everybody will take it over. But I'm not going to put up with any more from their vantage point. Now, I'm going to tell you a funny story. I had one umpire, 4-game series in Pittsburgh. So when you're there for 4 games, you're going to get an ump at every base. He's going to get all 3 bases and home plate.
Mm-hmm.
So the first night, there's a bang play at third. I go out. Our guy's called out. I don't think he's out. And I'm out there, and I'm hey, man, come on. You're in the perfect position. How can you miss a call right in the perfect, you need to, I go, all right. I said, we'll find out before the night's over if you were right or wrong. Well, later on, you see the video replay. Our guy was safe, but he was called out. He goes to second base the next night. Stolen base attempt. Our guy throws down there, Cervelli, somebody, tagged out, safe. Here I go again. Same guy that was on third, now he's on second. Argument, da. It gets a little more heated. Nothing, I go back. Both times it was like in the third or fourth inning. I felt it was a little too early. It was a big series.
Right.
First base, the third night, there's a big play. And I finally go down. I just throw down. I throw down. And he throws me out. Next night, home plate, balls and strikes. It's a mess. It's a show. Plus, I'm calling up now and asking for the video. No, man, that ball's 6 inches up. So finally, one of our guys get punched out. I go out. He's arguing with the ump. I go out, get in between them, and I get the player off. And finally, I'm yelling at him. He goes, "Hey, I'm going to tell you something." He said, "I threw you out last night." He said, "I'm not throwing you out tonight. You can sit here and bitch and moan all night if you want. Your team's horrible. You guys have played bad baseball for 3 days. You're playing bad baseball again. I'm not going to give you the comfort of getting thrown out and going up and watching. You're going to have to watch this the rest of the night just like I am from the dugout, and I'm going to watch it from home plate." I went back to the dugout, and my bench coach was like, "I thought you said you were going to get thrown out. I thought you said you had enough." I said, "Bannister, he declawed me. He took the claws right off of me when I went up there. He said, 'Hey, you can rant and yell the whole night. I'm not throwing you out. You guys are horrible. You're hard to watch.'" What a great reply from an umpire.
Yeah. And I think he saw your strategy, and he kind of diffused you. Okay, it's been a great hour. I do want to ask you a couple other things. Please plug your book. Your book, Hurtle-isms, is out and available.
It's available on Amazon. We also have a Shopify account that if you go on any social media, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on X. And I have a Linktree link on every one of those social media pages where you can hit. It gives you an opportunity to buy the book from Shopify, which is our account, or you can go to Amazon straight away. You can get an autographed book from me through Shopify, or you can just go to Amazon, order the book. The book took a year to write. I wrote every word. That wasn't the plan going in, but I kind of put together 25 Hurtle-isms, which are phrases I've used over the years that players have gravitated to, or coaches or owners in my life. I share authentically and transparently a lot of my history, a lot of my failures. I share my faith. I share my alcoholism. I share, 2 divorces. Now I've been married 26 years. I've been a recovering alcoholic for 27. I share 3 trips to the World Series. I share lessons learned as a young ball player. I've played with Hall of Famers. I've played against Hall of Famers. I just kind of got to the point where I was challenged by a friend of mine to write a book that would give people some hope and some experience to realize that people look at you and they think you have a perfect life. Well, you didn't have a perfect life. It was far
Right.
from perfect life, but you learned a lot along the way. And the role that my faith has played and the mistakes I did make that I had to own up to, the collateral damage I caused along the way, but then the amends I made to people along the way, and then turned my life around to the point where I had two different teams give me an opportunity to manage their ball club for 17 years in the big leagues because I represented the brand well, and I was a man of integrity and a man of his word. I share about my kids. I share about my wife, the difference and the blessing she's been in my life. So it's a quick read. I call it a comfortable read. The book it seems to be doing very, very well. We're very, very humbled by the people that have bought it and the responses and the endorsements we're getting from the people that have read it.
When we did meet, and it has been a blessing in my life. I hooked into your daily devotionals. At the time that you say that you made this turn in your life as it related to alcohol, was that about the same time that your faith had grown, or you went through a period of change in your life along that same time?
It did, Jack. I first gave my life to Christ at the age of 17 at an FCA event in high school. However, as I share in the book, I used Jesus as an ATM card for 23 years.
Understood.
When I needed some, I got some. When I didn't need it, and I got myself in a whole bunch of bad places. I rededicated my life to Christ, and I got sober about the same time, and Carla was instrumental in both of those. The devotionals came from there. The emails I send out, you can get that on any one of those sites as well. And I'll give you the link right now. It's ClintHurdle.com. Right. The emails are free. They're 6 days a week. We don't do it on Sunday. We're like Chick-fil-A. Truett Cafe told me the day's a Sabbath, the day you rest. Right. Actually, the Bible tells me that, but Truett honored it. It's ClintHurdle.com. You plug in your email address, and if you want devotionals, you can get those. If you want emails of encouragement, you can get those. You can get both. No charge. It's really kind of cool in this day and age. You get something for free, isn't it? Still.
Yeah, what you just said, man, do I ever know that? Like there can come a time when you come to know Jesus, and then there can come a time when you realize he's never really been Lord of your life. And then there's that next step. It's not that you don't know. So I understand that too very, very well, brother. God bless you. Thank you so much for being on. I hope that we can do this again very soon. Safe travels with spring training. But I know I'm trying to make it down to Florida before the spring's out, but I got my obligations right now with college baseball. Anything you want to say on the way out, sir?
No, I'm happy we had this opportunity. It's kind of fun. As you mentioned, came from a conversation and a chance meeting.
Yeah.
Our relationship grows. I hope it continues to grow. If I could be of service to you down the road, please let me know.
Yeah,
thank you for the opportunity, Jack. Appreciate it.
I definitely want to spend more time with you. I'd love to have you on again. Thank you. God bless you, Clint Hurdle. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, folks, like and subscribe and comment, and we'd love to have you again on these kind of baseball shows and sports shows. Clint Hurdle. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like the show, subscribe and hit your notification button to get an update when we post another episode. See you soon.